Hi everyone, welcome to Byte and Beyond with Uday. This is the part 2 for our global exception handling series. In case you haven't watched the part 1 yet, then you should see the I button somewhere on the screen. You can click on it to watch the part 1. So, this is the second part, and in this part, we will cover how to design common error response and we will configure the race controller advice. So, let's begin. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to create our API structure. I mean, the not API structure, basically error response structure. I mean, what is error response structure? So, if you see, let me create one more error. So, yeah, if you see, this is a particular, error response structure, and I want to make sure that I am going to use my own error response structure across the application. So, whether I am getting 400 or 404 or any kind of exception, the exception structure should be the same across the application. So for that, I'm going to create one more object, which is in our case API error. Okay, API error. So this is basically, if you know the DTO, this is going to be our DTO, the data transfer object for the error. Okay, it basically going to carry our error response. That's it. This is the error response class in simple language. So I will create few fields over here. The first one is status. Okay. Second one is message. And third one is the simply for the simplicity, I'm going to use the timestamp. Timestamp meaning at which time this error occurred. Okay. Then I'm going to use the constructor so I can create this error message. Uh, okay. So over here you can see that I'm expecting two params. The first one is the status. It can be 404, 400. It can be any HTTP status. And the second one is the message, the error message. And then this is the timestamp. In the constructor, I'm going to use our own timestamp. So to be accurate, I'm going to use system current time millis. So it will give the timestamp in milliseconds basically. And yeah, so why I'm not expecting this param from user, because user can might pass a wrong uh, timestamp, maybe outdated, or maybe user someone accidentally pass wrong timestamp. So that is why we are basically timestamp I'm creating this timestamp by our own inside the constructor itself. So we should not accept this such kind of arguments from the user, or I mean from the um, not user basically. But yeah, in such cases we should initialize such data in the constructor itself, because this is not related with the any error. It is basically show the current time when the error occurs. So that is why we should initialize such exception such fields in the constructor itself. Okay, now let's create getter setters for these three fields. So I'm going to, yes, these are our getter setters for this class. So yeah, this class is basically going to carry our error response, and that error response will be, instead of this, we will see status, message, and timestamp over here. So that's simple. This is the main purpose of this. API error class. Okay, and we are going to create one enum. Why enum? Because we are going to, as you know, you can see this is the message field, and we are going to throw few, yeah, we are going to pass some error messages across the uh, our our application. So in our service layer, there could be multiple service layer. So I'm going to make sure that I am using reusing the error messages, and I want to keep those error messages at the central place. So enum is the best place for such constants, so where we can create we can where we can store our error messages, and we can use those error messages across the application, so we don't need to hard code our message each and every places where we are going to throw an exception. So this is the industry standard. You should centralize such things in your application. So in our case, our enum name will be error message. Okay, error message. Okay, perfect. You can see the type is enum. It is not a class. So for constant, um, yeah. So for constant, you should always use the enum. Now let me create few error message. Okay. So first one is the employee not found, which is perfect. Employee not found, and uh, I would also like to pass the ID. Employee not found with let me just type this in small letter, with the ID, and I'm going to use the ID as the param over here. Okay. You might see that we are getting the error because I haven't created a constructor, enum constructor yet. So let me quickly create few fields. The few fields meaning only one field, the message and the constructor. Okay, so this is the constructor. See, now the error is gone because see over here I am creating. You can see I am creating enum and I am passing this error message. So that error message will come over here and it will be persisted or stored in this message. It is kind of, you can think of like it is an object. Okay, it is an object which carries this message. That's it. Okay, so let me create few more enums for in our case. The first one is for the not found. Okay, and this percentage d will represent our employee ID. Okay, I will show you or demonstrate how exactly it works, so don't worry. And then the next one is um, remove. Next error message is remove employee ID from request. Okay. Okay, it is giving me a huge message, error message. I'm not going to use that. We are going to keep it simple. We are going to say do not, you know, do not include employee ID. Do not include employee ID on creates. That's it. I think this looks good to me. This is sufficient. So this one is for when the employee is not found. This one is for the post when user is passing the employee ID in the request. So we will say do not include employee ID on create. Okay, and So user will know that while creating an employee, user should not use the employee ID. Okay, and the next one is post for the sorry for the put. I'm going to say employee ID must be, must be provided. Okay, so yeah, employee ID must be provided for update. Let me type this in small. Perfect. Okay, this we are going to use for update, meaning put if a user is forgot to add, the employee ID in the request, this error message will get displayed. Okay, and now the last message is for the email conflict. Yeah. So for that, let me type. I'm using some, friendly constant name, so it can be easy to understand and easy to remember if we are going to use that across our application. So the last one is employee email already exist. Okay. Okay. So what it says employee with email, and this is going to display the email already exists. Okay. So this S is a parent, a holder to display email address. Okay, that we will see in a bit how exactly it is going to, display or show the show or display these params. Okay, so now let me create one getter method for this get message, and in the end, let's create one helper method so we can pass this params, the employee ID and the email address, so it can get displayed in our error message. So the method is format message. Okay, so let me create one method over here. Simply public string, yeah, format message. And over here, I am using objects and then three dots arc. So I can pass this is basically array. So I can pass multiple params. There is no limit how many argument you can pass in this method. Yeah, you can pass one, you can pass two, you can pass as much as you want. Okay, so yeah, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use string format method, which is where I'm passing this message. Okay, the message could be employee not found, remove employee ID. It could be any message among this. And the argument can be the employee ID or the email address. Okay. And if we pass this, the string format will format that message and return a new string that will be, new string will be with the employee ID instead of percentage D. We will see one, two, three, whatever we have passed over here. And here now for this, whatever email address we are passing, we will see instead of percentage S, we will see the email address over here. Okay. So, yeah, we are done with the constants. So if we see our steps, we have created our custom exceptions. Okay. That is done. So bad request, resource conflict, and resource not found. These are the custom exceptions which we have created. And there is a common error response model. So API error is a common error response model, okay, which is going to carry our error message, okay, and it will be get displayed over here. I mean, it will be treated as a error response, and it will be get displayed in the postman, okay, in the request response basically. And over here we have created a bunch of error messages. Okay, for that we are using enum, which is the industry standard. For the constant, you should always use enum. And now last thing is remaining, not last thing basically. So if we see our step, this is the third step. The third step is add a global exception handler. Okay. So what it says, use REST controller advice to catch and return custom error responses. Okay. So we already have a global exception handler. Okay. So you can see it is already annotated with the REST controller advice. Okay. And we already have one exception handler, which we have implemented in our last video to handle the validation exceptions. But now we are going to use this global exception because this is a global exception. It is not only meant for validation exception. You can handle the exception across the application, and it can handle multiple exceptions. So that is why it's called the global exception handler. It is not for specific to validation. You can handle any exception which can occur in your application. Okay. And you can see over here, I'm using risk controller advice. Okay. There is another annotation which is at the controller advice. So at the high level, for the REST APIs, you should use this REST controller advice. Okay. REST controller advice meaning it will always send error response in JSON form. And in case of controller advice, so if you remove this, it becomes controller advice. It basically useful. It can, yes, it can use it can send the error response in a JSON format, but not by default. Okay. It is popular in the MVC web application. Okay, when there is a model view and controller, all the things are separate. But in case of REST controller advice, instead of, I mean, in case of REST APIs, you should use the REST controller advice instead of the controller advice. So if your application is MVC and you want to return some JSP page or you know in that case you can use the other controller advice. And if you want to purely return only JSON, okay, as a error response, you should always use the race controller advice. Okay. So yeah, in one line, race controller advice meaning send error response in JSON format. Only controller advice meaning you can either send the error response in JSON format, but it is not enabled by default. It is popular for the MVC pattern or MVC web application. So in that case, in MVC web application, controller advice recommended. In REST APIs implementation, REST controller advice is recommended. Okay. I will create a separate video if required. Please put your thought in the comment, so I will get to know that yes, you need um, a video between REST controller advice versus controller advice. So I will make a video on it. Please put a comment so I will get to know your interest on it. So yeah. So first of all, this is not a specific validation exception handler. So let me change the name. So this is a global exception handler. So let me give a name as a global exception handler. Okay. So this is global. Let me, instead of validation, let me type global exception handler. This name perfect. This name is perfect. Okay. And okay. Oh, now this looks perfect to me. Uh, we will uh, we will change a bit this exception handler method, but that we will do later. First of all, let us implement our new custom exceptions which we have just created. Okay, so the first one which we have created was let's say resource not found exception. And okay, yeah, so the the Jane AI. he is giving me suggestion. I am basically implementing those suggestions, so it makes our development faster. Okay, so let me explain what exactly I'm doing over here. So this exception or this exception handler method is basically implemented to catch resource not found exception, because this resource not found exception we are going to use in our service layer. And if service layer throws that exception, just a second. Yeah, if service layer throws that exception, this exception handler method will will be called, and the exception will be get passed over here. From the exception we will get the message. Which message? You can see, just a second. Resource not found, this message. Okay, this message, which we are passing. Okay, I'm going to use that message, and instead of hard coding this 404, I am going to use constant for http status dot not found. Okay, dot value. Okay, okay, just a second. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so over here this is not found 404 code, and this is the exception message. So you can see we are using the API error. So you can see I'm passing the status over here and message. The timestamp will be auto generated in the constructor itself, so I don't need to pass that. And this object, I am wrapping this object inside the response entity. You can see the return type is response entity API error. So this is our wrapper, and I'm wrapping this API error object inside the response entity. So over here, I can see the hard coded value. So instead of that, let me use the HTTP status not found. So this not found value 404 will be displayed over here. Instead of 500, we will see 404, and the error message, which will be seen over here. Instead of error, that there will be a message, and there will be a our custom timestamp. Okay, so there will be three fields. Okay, and this not found status is basically will be for this. So instead of 500, you will see over here 404. Okay, so that's how you can. Yeah, so basically that's how you can create an exception handler. So similarly, we will implement this for the remaining exceptions, custom exception basically. So our second one is resource conflict exception. So let's implement that. Nothing fancy, similar way. Okay, let me use resource conflict exception over here. Resource conflict exception. Yeah, over here. It's this one. Resource conflict exception. Perfect. And similarly, okay. So you can see all the methods are same. Only difference, only handlers are same basically. This is the exception handler. So all the handlers are same. You only see the difference among the exception, the custom exception which we are created. So this meant for the resource not found. This meant for resource conflict. Okay, and over here similarly, we are creating the API error, and we are passing this conflict. You can see the value for this conflict is 409. Okay, and this will be our error message which we are passing from our service layer. You will see how exactly we are going to use this custom exception in our service layer. So bear with me. I will connect the dots. But now, just for now, focus on these handlers, and I will explain whole flow from start to end, how exactly the request travels. Okay. And the last one is the bad request exception. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, it only difference is instead of this resource not found and conflict, I'm using bad request exception. Similarly, I'm expecting param as a bad request exception itself. I'm creating API error object. Over here, I'm passing bad request 400 HTTP status. So, okay. And the error or exception message. I'm wrapping this API error inside the response entity, and the status will be bad request. The the exception status will be bad request. So yeah, our three custom exception implementation is completed. Okay. Now we will update this. What I can say. Let me update this as well. So we will see the appropriate error message. But yeah, let's do this later. I will explain you why I'm doing this later, so you will see the difference. Okay, if you are not using the uh, API error, the exception will be seen a bit different. So uh, we will handle this later. Now, for now, let's keep as it is. So I think our what I can say, our third step is complete. Add a global exception handler. Yes. Use race controller advice to catch and return custom error responses, which we have already done over here. Okay. Over here, what it says, race controller to catch and return the custom error responses. Okay. So this exception handler will catch our custom error exceptions, and we will return. We will, we will format our error response in API error, and API error will carry our error response or error message to the user. So this step is done. So that is it for the part 2. And in the next part, we will use this custom exception in the service layer, and in the end, we will test the APIs. So stay tuned. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.